Emily Carter pushed open the front door of her childhood home, her bag still slung over her shoulder after a long day at the bank. The familiar scent of furniture polish and her mother's lavender air freshener wrapped around her. She kicked off her shoes, hoping for a quiet evening. But as she bent to pick up the small stack of mail on the entry table, her eyes caught something odd. A thin white envelope addressed to Jason Carter, her younger brother. At her address, she frowned, flipping through the pile. There were 2 more, all in his name. Credit card offers, a car insurance letter. Her chest tightened. Jason hadn't lived here in years. Why would his mail be coming to her house? Emily set the envelopes down, but couldn't shake the unease. All week she thought about it, turning it over in her mind. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Jason had used the wrong address again. But deep inside, something about it didn't feel right. By Sunday dinner, she couldn't hold her curiosity anymore. The family sat around the table, her parents, Linda and Robert, smiling warmly at Jason, who had arrived late as usual, joking about traffic. Emily waited until halfway through the meal before carefully asking, "Mom, Dad, why is Jason's mail coming to my house?" The room went quiet for a moment, forks pausing midair. Then Linda gave a little laugh, as though Emily had asked something silly. "Oh, that. Don't worry, dear. The deed's in his name now. We transferred it to him months ago." The words dropped like stones in Emily's chest. "What?" she whispered. Robert nodded, calm as if he were discussing the weather. "It made more sense this way. Jason needs the stability. You'll be fine, Emily." Her fork slipped from her hand, clattering against her plate. Her house, was in Jason's name? For years, she had been the one making payments. Every month without fail, she sent the money, believing it was her path to security, her reward for years of sacrifice. She had built her whole sense of safety around that home. And now, with a casual shrug, her parents had handed it to Jason. "You gave it to him?" Her voice cracked, anger and disbelief rushing together. "I've been paying for it. I've been the one." "Emily," Linda cut in, her tone soft but dismissive. "You're strong. You always have been. Jason, well, he struggles. He needs it more than you." Robert added, "You'll be fine, sweetheart. You've always landed on your feet." Emily sat frozen, staring at them, at Jason, who avoided her eyes but smirked faintly. The food on her plate blurred as hot tears filled her vision. She wanted to scream, to slam her fist against the table, but her voice had died inside her chest. Dinner continued, awkward but steady, as though nothing had happened. Emily barely tasted a bite. Later, she slipped out quietly, excusing herself before dessert. The night air was heavy when she reached her car. She slid into the driver's seat, hands trembling as she gripped the wheel. On the dark road home, tears spilled freely down her face, her throat burned, but no sobs came, just a steady stream she couldn't stop. She pressed harder on the steering wheel, her knuckles white. "They've already chosen him over me," she whispered into the silence, the words shaking in the cold air. And for the first time, she wondered if she had ever truly belonged to them at all. Eldest child, responsible, dependable. That was who Emily Carter had always been. From the time she was a teenager, she learned to carry more than her share. When her father, Robert, lost his job during her college years, the whole family struggled. Bills piled up, arguments filled the house, and fear crept into every corner. Emily could have left to chase her own dreams, but instead she stayed. She worked long hours at a coffee shop while still going to school, handing over her paychecks to help keep the lights on. Her 20s slipped away in sacrifice. While her friends traveled, shopped, or built their own lives, Emily paid rent, bought groceries, and even covered Jason's tuition when her parents couldn't. She told herself it was only temporary, that things would get better, that her family would someday see how much she gave up. Jason, the younger brother, was different. He was the golden child, always forgiven, always praised even when he stumbled. If Jason failed an exam, their mother comforted him, saying he was too creative for boring schoolwork. If Jason crashed the family car, their father called it a learning experience. When Emily got straight A's, no one clapped. They simply nodded, saying, "That's Emily, always reliable." Even as adults, the pattern never changed. Emily worked at a small bank. Her job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Every morning she woke early, pressed her clothes, and showed up on time. She lived carefully, saving every extra dollar. It was Emily who took on the mortgage for the family house, promising herself that one day it would be hers, a sign that all her sacrifices had meant something. To her, the house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was the place where she had patched holes in the ceiling during storms, where she had spent nights studying by lamplight while her parents argued about money. Owning it would mean security, proof that she had built something lasting after years of giving. It was her inheritance, not just of bricks and wood, but of identity and pride. Jason, on the other hand, lived without thought for tomorrow. He started businesses that failed within months, each time borrowing money he never repaid. One year he tried selling imported electronics. The next he promised to open a bar. Every time it collapsed, and every time, Emily or her parents had to pick up the pieces. Jason never carried the blame. Instead, Linda and Robert coddled him, saying, "He's just finding his way." But Jason was no longer a boy. He was a grown man. And still, they treated him as fragile, a glass ornament that must not break. Emily, on the other hand, was seen as unshakable stone. "You'll be fine," they told her whenever she voiced her struggles. "You're the strong one." Yet being the strong one meant carrying weight no one else wanted to touch. Bills, loans, mortgage payments, responsibilities that Jason ran from landed on her shoulders, and her parents barely noticed. She began to feel like she wasn't just paying money. She was paying with her life. Every hour at the bank, every late night worrying about bills, was part of a story where Emily was invisible except for what she could provide. The house was supposed to be the one thing that proved she mattered, that she wasn't just the family's safety net. Now, after learning the truth, she realized it was never about fairness. Her parents didn't see her sacrifice as love. They saw it as duty. She was the reliable daughter, so they could take from her without guilt. Jason was the fragile son, so they gave to him without question. The betrayal stung deeper than money or property. It felt like her entire identity, her role as the responsible child, had been used against her. She had spent years believing strength would earn her respect. Instead, it had only made her easier to exploit. And for the first time, Emily began to wonder if her parents loved her for who she was, or only for what she could give. Emily stops paying the mortgage in quiet rebellion, deciding if it belongs to Jason, then he can take responsibility for it. For years she had carried the weight, believing she was building her future. Now that she knew the truth, she couldn't bear to keep paying. It felt like pouring water into a bucket with no bottom. At first, no one noticed. The house still stood, bills kept arriving, and Jason strutted around at family dinners, bragging about his house. He puffed his chest, talking about how one day he might renovate the kitchen or rent out the spare room for extra money. Emily sat across the table, biting the inside of her cheek, her hands clenched under the tablecloth. She wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. Jason talking about plans he had no means to carry out, plans paid for by her sweat. Weeks passed. Then one Saturday morning, there was a loud knock at Emily's door. When she opened it, Jason stood there, pale and sweating, holding a handful of letters. "They're saying the bank's going to take the house." His voice cracked. He shoved the envelopes toward her. "Final notices, foreclosure." "I don't understand any of this. You've always handled it. What's going on?" Emily looked at the papers, the bold red letters screaming across the pages. A strange calm settled over her. "What's going on?" she said slowly. "Is that it's your house now. Your name's on the deed. So you pay for it." Jason blinked, as if she had spoken a foreign language. "Me? I don't have that kind of money. You can't just stop." "I already did," Emily interrupted. "I stopped weeks ago." That afternoon, the phone calls began. First Linda, her mother, her voice sharp and trembling. "Emily, how could you do this? You know Jason isn't good with finances. The bank is threatening to take his home." "Not his home," Emily replied firmly. "It was mine until you gave it away." "Don't you dare talk like that," Linda snapped. "We did what was best for him. He needs this stability. You've always been fine on your own." Next came Robert, his tone heavier, disappointed. "Emily, you're tearing this family apart. This isn't about fairness. It's about family. Sometimes you have to sacrifice for those who need more than you." Her hands shook as she held the phone. "I've been sacrificing my whole life," she said. "And none of you ever noticed." The final blow came at the next Sunday dinner. Jason, red-eyed and desperate, threw his fork onto the table. "This is your fault, Emily. You've ruined everything." She kept her eyes on her plate, refusing to give him the reaction he wanted. Jason slammed his fist down. "This is why nobody loves you. You only think about yourself." The words sliced through her, sharper than she expected. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. All the years of giving, all the late nights and early mornings, all the times she had saved him, covered for him, lifted him, it meant nothing. Emily stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. No one spoke. She picked up her coat and walked out of the house without looking back. By the time she reached her car, her chest was tight, and her vision blurred with tears. Her world felt like it was crumbling, the ground beneath her no longer safe. Yet under the grief and betrayal, something stronger began to rise. Her resolve. If they wanted Jason to carry the house, then let him. For once, Emily would not be the savior. She slid behind the wheel, wiped her eyes, and whispered to herself, "No more." And for the first time in her life, she meant it. Jason fails to pay, and the house is officially at risk. Letters from the bank keep arriving, thicker and more serious each time. The final notice comes stamped with words that make Emily's stomach twist. Foreclosure pending. She holds the paper in her hands, staring at it for a long time. The house was her childhood home, filled with both painful and tender memories. She had dreamed of keeping it, of one day calling it her own. Now, the thought of losing it tears at her heart. Yet the betrayal still burns hotter. Her parents had given it to Jason as if her years of sacrifice meant nothing. How could she fight for something that had been stolen from her? Her parents refused to see it that way. They call her constantly, voices heavy with guilt and disappointment. "Emily," her mother pleads over the phone one evening. "How can you let this happen? Think about your brother. He'll be out on the street. You're punishing him for no reason." "For no reason?" Emily replies, her voice trembling. "I paid for that house for years. And you gave it away. How am I the one at fault?" Linda's voice hardens. "Because you're stronger. You've always been stronger. Jason isn't like you. He can't handle this. You should help him." Her father calls the next day, his words heavy as a stone. "You're letting pride ruin this family, Emily. Is a piece of property more important than your brother? Than us?" Emily closes her eyes, gripping the phone tighter. "I'm not the one who ruined this family," she whispers. But the words don't silence the guilt that curls inside her. Soon, whispers spread through the extended family. Cousins, aunts, uncles, people who knew nothing about the truth begin to talk. At a family gathering, Emily overhears her aunt muttering, "She's selfish, that one. Always looking out for herself." The words sting like poison. She goes home that night, lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Was she selfish? Was she cruel for refusing to help? The doubts weigh heavily, and the stress at work only makes it worse. Deadlines pile up at the bank. Her manager notices her distraction, her mistakes. She feels herself unraveling, caught between the demands of her family and the pressure of her job. Memories surface in sharp flashes, as though her past is demanding to be seen. She remembers working 2 jobs in college, days at the library, nights waiting tables, while Jason partied and asked for money he never repaid. She remembers the vacation she once planned to Europe, canceling it last minute when her parents begged her to cover Jason's rent. She remembers nights crying quietly in her room, exhausted and lonely, but forcing herself to keep going because no one else would. She has given and given. And yet, all anyone sees is what she refuses to give now. One evening, unable to carry the weight alone, Emily calls her best friend Maya. They meet at a small cafe, the hum of conversation around them making it safe to speak. Emily stirs her coffee, her hands shaking. "Maybe they're right," she whispers. "Maybe I am heartless. Maybe I should have just kept paying." Maya leans forward, her eyes steady. "Emily, listen to me. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. You've carried your family for years, and they never thanked you. They expect you to sacrifice until you have nothing left. That isn't love. That's using you." Tears slip down Emily's cheeks. "But they're my parents. He's my brother. And you're a person," Maya says firmly. "You deserve peace too." The words wrap around Emily like a blanket. For the first time, she feels the faint spark of something she thought she had lost, permission to take care of herself. But the storm doesn't end there. Late one night, A loud knock shakes her apartment door. Emily opens it to find Jason standing in the hallway, his hair messy, his face pale with fear. He clutches a crumpled foreclosure letter. "Please, Em," he begs, his voice cracking. "I'll lose everything. I don't know what to do. I can't survive this." Emily studies him, her brother who had always been shielded, always rescued. For a moment, her heart aches. She sees the boy he once was, the boy she used to protect, but then she remembers every sacrifice, every dismissal, every moment she was told to be strong while he was allowed to be weak. Her voice is quiet but firm. "You never lost anything, Jason. It was always handed to you." Jason's face crumbles. "How can you just stand there and let this happen?" Emily's eyes burn with unshed tears. "Because it's not mine to fix anymore." The silence between them is heavy, filled with years of unspoken truth. This was never about a house. It was about a family that chose favoritism over fairness, that expected endless sacrifice from one child while protecting the other from consequence. The cracks in their family had always been there. Now they were wide open, impossible to ignore. And for the first time, Emily decided she would no longer step into them to hold the pieces together. Foreclosure becomes imminent. The bank sets a final date, and the family house is days away from being taken. Panic spreads through Emily's parents, and in their desperation, they decide to stage a family intervention. On a Sunday evening, they call Emily to come over. She knows something is wrong the moment she steps inside. The living room is too quiet, the air too heavy. Jason sits on the couch, his head hanging low but his eyes darting nervously. Her parents stand behind him, their faces stern and set. "Sit down," Robert says firmly. "We need to talk." Emily stays standing, crossing her arms. "Talk about what? You've already made your choice." Her mother's voice rises immediately, sharp as a knife. "Don't you dare start with that tone. You think you're some kind of victim? After everything we've done for you." Emily's jaw tightens. "Everything you've done for me? I paid the bills. I paid the mortgage. I carried this family when you couldn't." Linda slams her hand on the table. "We raised you. We gave you a roof, food, clothes. Don't act like you've done us some great favor. You owe us, Emily. And now, when your brother needs you most, you're turning your back on him." Jason looks up, his eyes brimming with tears. "You're abandoning me, Em. I'll lose the house. I'll lose everything. You're supposed to be my sister. Why are you so cruel?" Emily's chest heaves, anger rising like a storm. For years she swallowed her feelings, let their words crush her into silence. But not tonight. "Cruel," she explodes, her voice shaking the room. "You want to talk about cruel? Do you know how many nights I stayed up working 2 jobs so this family could survive? Do you know how many vacations I gave up? How many dreams I buried? Because someone had to clean up Jason's mess? I paid his debts. I carried his failures. And you," she points at her parents, her voice cracking. "You never once said thank you. Not once. You only told me I was strong, that I would be fine. But I wasn't fine. I was drowning, and none of you cared." The room falls silent, her words echoing. Jason's tears spill over, but Emily sees no remorse in them, only fear. Linda tries to recover, her tone softening but still edged with guilt. "Emily, darling, we didn't mean to hurt you. But Jason, he's fragile. He can't handle life the way you can. We had to help him." Emily straightens, her breath heavy, her eyes burning with a new fire. "Help him? You didn't just help him. You stole from me to give to him." Robert frowns. "What are you talking about?" Emily pulls a folded paper from her bag and lays it on the table. "I went to a lawyer. I asked about the deed. Do you know what I found out? My name was removed illegally, fraudulently. You took me off without my knowledge or consent. That's a crime." The color drains from her parents' faces. Robert's lips part, but no words come out. Linda stares at the paper as though it's a weapon aimed at her. Jason shakes his head quickly, panic rising in his voice. No, you wouldn't actually sue us, would you? You wouldn't do that to your own family." Emily's voice is calm now, steadier than ever before. "I could. And if I wanted to, I could take this to court and expose everything. But I'm not going to, because I've finally realized something." They all look at her, waiting, their fear thick in the air. "You gave him everything," Emily says, her words slow and deliberate. "But now, I'm finally giving myself freedom, From all of you. For a moment, no one moves. Jason opens his mouth to argue, but no sound comes out. Linda looks as if she's been struck, while Robert stares at the floor, shame creeping into his eyes. Emily turns, walks to the door, and picks up her coat. Her steps are steady, her back straight. She doesn't cry this time. She doesn't beg or explain. She simply leaves, her words hanging in the silence like thunder after a storm. Behind her, the family is left speechless, broken not by her rebellion, but by the truth they had refused to see for so long. Emily moves into her own apartment, small but truly hers. The walls are bare at first, the furniture simple and second-hand, but every corner feels like freedom. No one else's name is on the lease. No one else can take it away from her. When she turns the key in the lock at night, she breathes easier, knowing that this space belongs only to her. At first, the silence feels heavy. She misses the familiar creaks of the old family house, the sense of history in its walls. But then she reminds herself, history can be a chain too. Slowly, she begins to make the new place her own. She hangs soft curtains, places a small plant by the window, and fills the kitchen shelf with mugs she actually likes, not the mismatched ones she grew up with. She also begins therapy. The first few sessions are hard. Sitting across from a stranger and opening wounds she had buried for years. She talks about her childhood, about the weight of being the responsible one, about Jason being the golden child. She admits that sometimes she doesn't even know who she is outside of her family's needs. The therapist listens, nods, and gently guides her through the layers of resentment she has carried for too long. Week by week, Emily feels lighter. She learns that setting boundaries is not selfishness, but survival. She learns that her worth is not measured by how much she gives or how much pain she can endure. For the first time, she begins to think about what she wants, not what others expect of her. Her best friend, Maya, becomes a steady source of encouragement. On evenings when Emily feels doubt creep back in, Maya reminds her, "You're not heartless. You're healing." Together, they share laughter over takeout dinners, long walks in the park, and quiet moments that remind Emily life can be simple and sweet when it isn't heavy with guilt. Even at work, Emily notices a change. Her colleagues, once just casual coworkers, now feel like allies. They invite her out for coffee, celebrate her small victories, and listen when she speaks. For the first time, Emily allows herself to accept kindness without feeling she must repay it tenfold. Meanwhile, Jason loses the house. The foreclosure goes through, and the bank takes it back. Emily hears about it through a cousin. Her parents scramble to cover his debts, selling off valuables, borrowing from relatives, doing everything they can to soften the blow for him. But Emily doesn't step in. She doesn't rush to fix it, doesn't open her wallet or her heart to save Jason yet again. She lets him face the reality he had been shielded from his whole life. There are moments when guilt tries to creep in. Nights when she lies awake, wondering if she has truly abandoned her family. But then she remembers the years she gave everything, and how little they valued it. She whispers to herself, "It's not my burden anymore." Slowly, the guilt fades, replaced by a quiet strength. She realizes she doesn't need their validation. She doesn't need their approval to feel whole. She is no longer the invisible daughter, no longer the family's safety net. She is Emily, capable, worthy, and finally free. And in that freedom, she discovers something she never expected: peace. Months later, Emily drives past the old family house, now empty, a big for sale sign planted firmly in the front yard. The grass is overgrown, the curtains hang limp in the windows, and the place that once held her whole life looks strangely lifeless. She slows the car and pulls over for a moment, resting her hands on the steering wheel. For years, this house had been her anchor. She had poured her sweat and money into it, believing it would one day be hers. It had carried her childhood memories, her teenage sacrifices, her long nights of responsibility. For so long, she had tied her worth to these walls. Now looking at it, she feels nothing heavy. No grief, no longing. Instead, there is peace. The house no longer feels like her burden. It is just a building, empty and waiting for someone new. Emily takes a deep breath and whispers softly to herself, "I was never home there anyway." The words feel like a release. She realizes home is not a place given or taken away. Home is the space she chooses for herself, the life she builds with her own hands. without strings tied to guilt or favoritism. She starts the engine again. And as she pulls back onto the road, a small smile spreads across her face. It isn't a loud or showy smile, but a quiet one, filled with strength. For the first time, she feels free. Not because she won the fight, but because she finally walked away from it. The house fades in her rearview mirror, but Emily doesn't look back. She doesn't need to. Her future is ahead of her, open and waiting. And for the first time in her life, she knows it belongs to her. Hi friends, thanks so much for staying till the end. Don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button for more. See you next time.